Started then. Okay, well, thanks everyone for taking the time to join this webinar today. So today we're joined by colleagues from Stewardship Center for BC and also Power to Be to talk about basically improving equitable access to nature. So I've had the pleasure of working with Kelly and Ariadne over the past few years through the Greenspace for All project. Kelly is a Greenspace for All project manager at SCPC and a registered professional forester with a background in forest hydrology. She also works closely with communities on nature-based solutions through the Green Shores program. Ariadne is the Greenspace for All projects coordinator and brings a background in sustainable business from SFU, Simon Fraser University, and she supports stewardship initiatives and community engagement around equitable access to nature. So Greenspace for All, this is a 3-year pilot project that explores how communities and decision makers can improve equitable access to green spaces by identifying barriers faced by what we call equity deserving communities and developing practical tools and guidance for more inclusive green space planning. And this is one of the projects that's funded through the joint ventures. And then we'll also be joined by Robin. So he's the head of programs at Power to Be, and he'll be speaking about their project called Propelling Access Through Partnerships and how partnerships and inclusive outdoor recreation programs are helping more people connect with nature.
As mentioned, I'm Kelly Loch, the Greenspace for All project manager with the Stewardship Center or for BC, or SCBC as we know it for short. And it's very much my pleasure to be co-presenting with my colleagues Ariadne from SCBC and Robin from Power to Be. And I just want to mention that as a forester, I've always had a really deep love for green space, particularly water and trees. And it's through this project, though, that I've become much more aware of those benefits of green space, and also that there are communities that don't have equitable access, as Andrew mentioned, to green space for all the precious benefits, health and wellness, mitigation from climate change, and so on. And we'll talk about what those more are today. So it has been our hope that through this project, we've been able to advance ideas and best practices of how to increase equitable access to green space for one and all. Just a bit of background definition-wise, understanding green space, kind of defining it. It's really any vegetated area of land or wetland within or adjoining an urban area, including forests, conservation areas, wetlands, parks, greenways, and trails. And it is becoming increasingly recognized that access to green space is really a core component of healthy, resilient, and inclusive communities. So that's everyone. Yet, as we've been mentioning across Canada, research is showing that marginalized and underserved communities are facing barriers, a number of barriers, and that is what we've been trying to look at in this project. So benefits of green space, wow, there are many. So environmentally, green spaces increase natural habitat or wildlife. They provide food and shelter for insects, birds, mammals, other species, and thus they benefit humans by providing proximity to these organisms. For example, through something like bird viewing. So it's really about biodiversity. We want to be close to and have more biodiversity. Green space also provides multiple ecosystem benefits, including erosion prevention, flood control, climate regulation, carbon sequestration, and filtration of our air and water. And those are all critical to human well-being, particularly in the face of changing climate. Socially, green space has been shown to improve community well-being, and that's because people go out into green spaces. Sometimes they come as a family, sometimes they come as partners of the community, and they have a chance to make connections, including spiritual connections. Economically, green spaces support local economies. They attract tourism. They reduce energy costs. And that's because there's a decreased need to heat and cool infrastructure that is nearby green space. And then people have access to green space and understand the value of it. They're more likely to protect the environmental values of it. Health-wise, green space has been linked to improved mental, physical, spiritual, and cultural well-being, and even enhanced immune function. So this program fits within one of the three streams of the Stewardship Center for British Columbia, that is strengthening stewardship. There are another two kind of streams within SEBC, the Green Shores, which is best practices for shorelines and wildlife and species at risk, which includes a cats and birds stream. And the programs really kind of intertwine and connect and enhance each other. The Stewardship overall is an environmental nonprofit whose mandate is to strengthen ecological stewardship in BC by providing educational, technical, and capacity building programs and resources. So Greenspace for All as a project was built primarily, I would have to really give a shout out here to Andrew because I think it's Ariadne and I started the project here too, but it's our understanding that it was really his vision and passion for providing that equitable access to green space for people that kind of started this project, got the funding in place, and got the project connected to SEBC. And we're really grateful for that. And so we've had the 3 years of funding from 2023 to March of this year. And geographically, we've been working on the east coast of Vancouver Island in more or less in three regional districts. Starting from the South Capitol Regional District of Nanaimo, and then the Comox Valley Regional District. And I would say that partnership and collaboration has been really, really vital to the evolution and success of this project. And so we've been so fortunate to work with Power to Be, which is an important partner and group that we have just really loved working with, and you'll hear more about today. We've also worked closely with the Gorge Waterway Action Society, who has a mission around environmental education and community involvement. So that's been really important. And we've just continued to learn that there's many equity deserving communities that don't always have access to green space. So there's a long list of them you can see on the slide here. I would say that through Greenspace for All, we did our best to reach out to as many of those as we could within our capacity limitations. I'll pass it off to Ariadne to tell you about year one.
Great. Thank you, Kelly. And thank you everyone for having us. So the Stewardship Center, in partnership with Environment and Climate Change Canada and the Joint Ventures Project, as well as UBC Bright student Jenny Munoz, who's in the call today, hello, aimed to identify the extent to which regional districts on the east coast of Vancouver Island have adopted equitable policies and solutions to green space access and climate adaptation. So year one of this project consisted of a comprehensive review of the green space and climate action strategies that were implemented by these three regional districts, Capital, Nanaimo, and Comox Valley. And these findings were captured in the policy review report, which provides recommended measures for equitable green space management and climate action. Additionally, the research team conducted a GIS analysis to assess access to protected green spaces in underserved communities, visualizing the relationship between proximity to green space and socio-demographic factors like gender, income, disability, and minority identity. And from this policy review, it was demonstrated that these strategies often mention equity, but the majority of these plans focus on only one aspect, usually physical access. So as you can see in the first row of charts, the second row visualizes whether these strategies incorporate other aspects of equity. So while a lot of these policies address physical abilities and access, we did see some gaps in accounting for other considerations like ethnicity, gender and sexual orientation, and income. So these strategic plans also in the third row often are missing some measurable and specific actions to address inequitable access to green space, as well as climate adaptation measures. So based on this review, we can see that there are some gaps in how local governments are addressing equitable access to nature at the strategic level, which presents some opportunities for where this can be improved. And this report does provide a number of recommendations on how to do so. The research also included a GIS analysis of the relative accessibility of green space within the three regional districts based on two indices. So the Underserved Community Index examines socio-demographic variables such as first language, minority identity, Indigenous identity, income, and gender. And so the higher the score here, the greater the area's social vulnerability. And the restricted green space index looks at the distance to protected green space based on green spaces within 1 kilometer and driving time, as well as green space area. So in this analysis, protected green spaces include lands owned by non-governmental organizations, provincial and national protected areas, and local government protected areas. And a higher score in this index indicates lower access to protected green spaces in that area. So these indices were then plotted to generate bivariate maps, which highlight areas where restricted green space access intersects with high levels of social vulnerability. And in this study, these hotspots are defined as areas with high scores for both restricted green space and underserved community indices. And through this analysis, we could identify dissemination areas in each of the regional districts that exhibit or might be considered priorities for increasing protected green spaces to improve access for underserved communities. So this map here on the right, this is the map for the Capital Regional District. And on the next slide, here's just a closer look at the legend itself and the bivariate maps for Nanaimo and Comox Valley. And I do want to note again that this is examining access to protected green spaces. It's not considering like smaller local parks or greenways that residents might be accessing otherwise. However, we did want to see the connections to areas that have high levels of biodiversity and ecological integrity. So this analysis and the policy review report provided the baseline data for the Greenspace for All project. And to build upon the research that was conducted, the Stewardship Center sought to explore these barriers and pilot different strategies that would help bridge the connection between underserved community members and green spaces. So ultimately, our desired outcomes were to enhance understanding and awareness of the benefits of green space and why access matters to us all, to identify new pathways for supporting equity-informed green space and policy action, and to strengthen the capacity of local governments to apply equity-informed approaches such as tools and resources, partnerships and ideas, and overall to help improve access to and use of green space by equity-deserving communities in our target regions.
Thanks, Ariadne, and I'll jump into years 2 and 3. As I mentioned before, this is when Ariadne and I started onto the project. So woven throughout the 4 outcomes that Ariadne just mentioned was really work to understand and address barriers. So we're really trying to figure out what they were and how to improve those barriers, and also how to quantify impact. So I would say that this slide kind of gives us some of the numbers for the project. Another key part of this was that we use a multifaceted approach, and I'll kind of be speaking to each of these components, one of which was to develop a project advisory committee, or a PAC as we called it. And these were members from local governments, community agencies, stewardship groups, working with equity deserving communities in those 3 regional districts. And this was a key part of building partnerships throughout the project. The PAC was formed in the beginning of year 2 with 28 members, and by early 2026, kind of where we're about now, we grew to about 41 members, and that spanned 24 different agencies. So a lot of diverse expertise, really important to the project. And the purpose of the PAC was really to help us seek guidance from them, and then also share learnings both from ourselves and amongst ourselves. So building on the expertise and ideas from the PAC, we formed some smaller working groups and we developed case studies. And those were kind of a key part of the project as well in this multifaceted approach. They were basically different ways of trying to figure out how to overcome barriers in providing equitable access to green space. And then we also worked with outreach events, so that you can see the 14 outreach events there. And those were opportunities to plug into events in the community with a target of a community, an equity deserving community, that so that there was an opportunity both for us to learn from them and then also share again any learnings we'd had from previous discussions with our PAC. Just in general, the format for working with a PAC was that we had quarterly meetings. I would say attendance really varied from meeting to meeting. In general, we had kind of an introduction section because there was different attendees at each of those. So that gave a chance for people to get to know each other and potentially work together at later dates. We had a section with updates from the Greenspace for All project. We often had a speaker, someone working in this space, and all of that came together, as I mentioned, on a quarterly basis. So looking at it in a different way, I'm just going to really emphasize the PAC because they've been such an important part of the project. There was over 60 community experts on our PAC. We had professionals, leaders, change makers from across the 3 regional districts. And this included, as I mentioned, stewardship groups, and participation did vary, but I would say that overall there was always such a great exchange of ideas. And we went on to actually have a corporate partner as well, which you can see above. The one university partner was the University of Victoria. So again, we really strove, and we're really fortunate, I would say, to have a lot of diversity in our PAC representation. Looking at it a little bit differently, these are the logos of just so many different people and agencies and groups that we worked with, vital to the project. And I would mention that some of our key partners, in particular in years 2 and 3, were the Central Vancouver Island Multicultural Society out of RDN, Vancouver Island University, Sea Strength Health, which was a health partner, the City of Nanaimo, the Regional District of Nanaimo, Career Center of Comox Valley, Village of Cumberland, Power to Be, Gorge Waterway Action Society, Swan Lake Nature Sanctuary, Malahat Skywalk, who became our corporate partner, and Victoria Immigrant and Refugee Center Society, or VERCS. Township of Esquimalt was really important to us all the way along, and BC Parks Foundation. So these were also part of our project in that we developed a case study report at the end of each year, basically. So year 1, we kind of rolled our case studies together. We tried to use an adaptive approach, so tried to use our learnings from each sequential case study or outreach event to improve accessibility, inclusion, engagement with the new audiences. So we focused on case studies and building partnerships in CRD in kind of year 2, and then expanded, I would say, up into Regional District of Nanaimo and Comox Valley Regional District in year 3. That having been said, we circled back to CRD because what we did find in particular was that it takes a lot of work to build those, the trust and the relationships, and building on those helped us to develop, we think, more solid case studies. So just some examples around our case studies. We hosted a nature walk at World Ocean Day in Esquimalt Gorge Park in collaboration with the Gorge Waterway Action Society, Federation of Mountain Clubs of BC, Vancouver Island Trail Association, and Sequoia. We co-organized an Indigenous-led One in Spirit walk at Bowen Walk for new immigrants in Nanaimo, and that was in collaboration with Central Vancouver Island Multicultural Society. In March of 2025, there was a nature walk with Comox Valley Pride Festival and Queer Community, and that was in August 2021. That was at the Bevan Wetlands. So again, we were trying to match up kind of a natural green space, something accessible, and agencies working in that type of a space. We also had a really successful nature walk at Buttertubs Marsh Park in Nanaimo. We had students from VIU, newcomers to the country, and general community kind of coming through. And we had partnerships there with VIU, the Nature Trust of BC, again, Central Vancouver Island Multicultural Society, Nature Nanaimo, and Sea Strength, which is our health partner. And we also co-organized the Forest to Sky Wellness Day at the Malahat Skywalk in collaboration with Power to Be and VERCS on January of 26, which I'll be talking about in a moment. We also had additional case study activity discussions, and I mention these because a lot went into developing a case study, and often it was just finding the right kind of a partnership and having those initial discussions. So we had some with the BC Parks Foundation, the School District 71 up in Comox Valley Regional District, because we were trying to plug in and support their Greening Schoolyards initiative, which aims to increase the number of green spaces in school communities by working with youth and students. So again, when we think of equity deserving communities, that's one of the target audiences. So we were trying to do some work in the school district, and unfortunately, because of timing, they were going to be doing, for example, schoolyard plantings after this project ended. But we had some initial discussions and I think raised awareness. So that's, I think, a positive thing. And then we also had, we've just actually recently in our final PAC meeting had some discussions with Power to Be and the Greater Victoria Neighborhood and Gorge Waterway Action Society about a potential linkage to replicate or try to do something similar to Power to Be's Have a Go Day, which is really successful, have that in the Nanaimo area. So we'll see where that heads to. So just jumping into one of our two key case studies, the Winter Bird Walk was hosted with an important partner, Swan Lake Nature Sanctuary, took place in February of last year. And as I mentioned, it was organized in partnership with Swan Lake, Gorge Waterway Action Society, Power to Be, and the Victoria Immigrant and Refugee Center Society. We had the queer ornithologist Hannah Hickley leading two bird walks, teaching participants how to identify bird species by their calls and physical features. SCBC produced a one-page kind of identification sheet so people could take that with them as well. And even though we had kind of like now, a nice light snow the night before, and there were some issues around trail access, visitation and attendance was amazing. We had over 60 participants of all ages and abilities, despite the weather. And there was a lot of interest from clients at both Verks and Power to Be. And even though Power to Be wasn't able to attend because of the weather, they're with us in spirit and in participation in organization. So that's super important. And I would say that the site is quite accessible for mobility devices and wheelchairs. So that is an important part of when you set up an event. When we set up case studies, we have to always consider that. And the thing about Swan Lake, if anyone's been to it or not, is that it's an incredible space within an urban environment, very accessible. And we found that people attending really enjoy themselves. They did a craft on site after they had a chance to do their bird walk. We had two different sign-up sessions for that. They came in and did a craft, and then there were snacks, of course. We had to have food. And we just had we did surveys with some of the participants, and we just found participation enjoyment was really high. So we were really happy about that. And we'll show another slide, I think, about that one. Yeah, so this is one of the quotes from a family that participated. And there was one family I remember in particular that had come from Colombia, and they said that they'd done birding in Colombia and had really missed it. And so by coming to the Swan Lake event, they had a chance to kind of reconnect with that and, become aware of the green space at Swan Lake. And so that was one group. And then this group said that they were really glad to get their kids off screens and get them out into a natural environment, and that they said they'd be back. So I think that was something else we were really trying to do with the project, was help people become aware of green spaces that they could access on into the future. So. And then I'll mention I'll describe the final case study that we had, which is the Forest to Sky Wellness Day. It took place at the very end of January of this year at the Malahat Skywalk. It's located just a little bit north of Capital Regional District. And this was really important for us because we were really trying to roll up all our learnings and our awareness about barriers and overcome as many of them as we could. And, with respect to accessing green space. And it came about through a previous collaboration that we had with the Greater Victoria Neighborhood, which is a loose consortium of agencies working to advance awareness and understanding and education about nature in the kind of the Greater Victoria area, which would be part of CRD. And so this, through the Greater Victoria Neighborhood, I had a chance to meet with some staff from the Malahat Skywalk Corporation. And as a corporation, the Malahat Skywalk is very much trying to promote equitable access to nature and green space. And they were just an amazing, keen partner. They were having a month-long awareness event called, basically winter wellness for the month of January. So we popped in at the very end there, and we had a chance for people to come and participate in coastal forest bathing. They had a facilitator for that, and just provide overall wellness. And as a facility, the Malahat Skywalk is an amazing and immersive space. You're really in nature. You're in the coastal Douglas fir ecosystem, which is a really special ecosystem provincially. And the facility itself is really well designed for universal access. There are trails with different levels of access, but it's well signed. And people have a chance to do self-guided nature walks, and there's numerous family-friendly activities. The Malahat Skywalk provided free tea. It was kind of, we kind of picked these cold, snowy days, but it was foggy and rainy and cold, not snowy in this case. But we were amazed at how many people came out. We had close to 200. I think it was 170, high 176 or something. and they both came by bus. So the Malahat Skywalk covered the cost of a shuttle. We, through the project, provided some dollars back towards that, but they were definitely the majority covering that. They also provided free passes for all those people coming by. So some came by on the shuttle and some drove themselves. And we just saw amazing results. Everyone was really happy to be there. Again, a lot of people saying, I'm going to come back, I'm going to get a pass and come back. And actually, the Malahat Skywalk provided a special arrangement where anyone wanting to buy a pass, it would be the cost of one day, but it would actually be eligible for the whole year. So just incredible generosity on the Malahat Skywalk part, and their corporate linkage was vital to the success of the project. So some of our key barriers that we were aware of and that we did, I think, address successfully were transportation. It's a little ways out of Victoria. So as I mentioned, Malahat Skywalk covered most of the cost of the coach bus. We had 55 people, I think, on the bus or something. The entry costs were covered. So that's, for a family of 4 or 5 or 6, that could be a barrier. Food and beverages, SEBC provided snacks, and those are super popular again with a partner with families in particular, and just overall assistance. We had so much assistance both from a Victoria Immigrant and Refugee Center Society, Power to Be, who is already in partnership with the Malahat Skywalk, was amazing on site, and just it just all came together really, really well. And I know, Ariadne, if you want to, we had, so Malahat Skywalk produced a little reel, and if you want to just try to play that, we thought that was kind of a nice end to the project.
It might not be sound, but just a really nice way of seeing how the day went.
I guess you can't put the sound on. That's the happy people in the bus at the end. Tired but happy. And I would say that Jadrian and Bella, who are in the bottom center photo there, at the end of the event, were just super excited how well it went, and said that they really wanted to try to do something similar to this, perhaps at the end of this upcoming season. So I'll
Great.
pass it back to Ariadne.
Thank you. And just one more study that we wanted to highlight, in celebration of the 2025 Comox Valley Pride Festival, we collaborated with the Queer Center Comox Valley to offer a free and accessible nature wander for the queer community. And so the walk followed an accessible path along the Pentlatch River, where the walk leader, Mika Johnson, who is an indigiqueer and neurodivergent nature educator, an artist, and community organizer, described the ecological, cultural, and recreational values of the river, emphasizing the Indigenous names and colonial history, and the ancestral territories of the Pentlatch people, and described how the river also holds significant ecological value as one of the key salmon producing systems on Vancouver Island. It supports all 5 species of Pacific salmon and provides essential habitat for spawning, rearing, and migration. And the event itself, we promoted on the Pride Festival's official webpage and schedule, as well as through Eventbrite and Facebook. And this received a significant amount of interest from the community. At the event, we had 12 participants, which was a really great turnout. We were really excited to have so many people join us. A lot of people didn't know each other before the walk, but towards the end and throughout the festival over that weekend, they built their own connections and friendships and relationships, which was really exciting to hear. And this event was new to the Pride Festival's typical programming. And since it was so well received and such a meaningful opportunity to connect with others, we hope to see that this type of event continues on into future festivals. Changing gears a little bit, we wanted to talk a little bit about our outreach events. So during years 2 and 3, Kelly and I attended 14 different events to raise awareness of the project, to engage with community members, and to share resources about the benefits of nature. In year one, we attended several farmers markets, trade shows, and Earth Day celebrations, but we soon realized that we were not reaching our target audience in these environments. So towards the end of year two and into year three, we adapted by attending events organized by our project partners who are serving equity deserving communities, such as Power to Be's Have a Go Day, Vancouver Island University's Connect Fair for students. We attended 2 multicultural celebrations, as well as the Gorge Waterway Action Society's Queer and Climate Action Seminar for queer youth. And many of our conversations at these events focused on how and where people access nature, whether they face any challenges or barriers, and why equitable access to nature is so important to the health and wellness of the whole community. So, for example, at the Newcomer Wellness Day in Nanaimo, we invited a local nurse and nature-based health professional, Joni Litchfield from Sea Strength Health, which Kelly mentioned earlier, to speak to the direct health benefits of being in nature. We also shared several handouts created by the BC Parks Foundation, which speaks to the science-based benefits of nature for health and well-being. And at the beginning of year two, Kelly and I were really interested in better understanding the barriers to accessing nature and how green spaces are utilized from the perspective of the community. So with the help from members of our project advisory committee, we brainstormed a community level needs assessment where we would pose questions on these poster boards to the public to understand how they're engaging with green spaces, whether they face any barriers, and what factors might improve their access. So we implemented this at 4 of our outreach events in year two. And that included one pop-up booth at an urban shopping center in Victoria, where we just set up a table kind of within the outdoor shopping mall area. And at these outreach events, people shared positive experiences, highlighting the proximity of green spaces to their homes and access to personal vehicles as important factors. One gentleman in particular expressed how getting out into nature was very instrumental to his mental health during the pandemic. And many others often shared their experiences just participating in hiking and walking, running, and other outdoor physical activities. And something that stood out to us were recommendations such as hosting sensory-friendly outdoor programs for neurodivergent youth, improving the safety of green spaces for women and newcomers, communicating information about green spaces like accessibility features and directional signage, and concerns that were shared about protecting existing green spaces from development related to Bill 44. Another mechanism that we used to collect feedback from the community was through surveys, which we utilized at different outreach events and case study activities. At case study events, these surveys generally asked how event participants enjoyed the experience and whether the event helped them learn more about things like biodiversity and climate change. And at both case study events and outreach events, we also sought to understand the barriers and supporting factors to accessing nature. So the 2 questions here capture some of those responses, which align with a lot of the learnings from our community members and project partners and existing research. So for people who regularly access nature, supporting factors include proximity to green space, sense of safety, and social relationships. And on the flip side of that, factors that might make it more difficult accessing nature also do include proximity to green space, access to a personal vehicle, and sense of safety and inclusion in green spaces. So what do these barriers to accessing nature look like from a partner's perspective? At our last PAC meeting, Sarah Haynes from the Central Vancouver Island Multicultural Society shared some of those insights based on their program coordination experience and client needs. And so she identified how transportation can be a significant barrier for people getting out to these spaces. It also limits the society's ability to organize and host events in green spaces because their policies don't allow them to transport clients. There's also the factor of financial cost. So not only for the society's ability to sustain different programs that rely on funding, there are also recreational programs that are offered at cost by either municipalities or other private organizations, which can be a barrier for newcomer families who are dealing with other priorities or are living on a low income. Digital literacy skills, the ability to just even navigate online registration systems such as municipal parks and recreation programs, that can make it challenging to register and even just find information on different outdoor or nature-based programming. Language can also create a barrier for people who don't understand what we mean by nature walks or birding, or who might feel apprehensive about participating in an English-only program. And physical ability, a lot of newcomers are coming into the region or to the country with complex care needs, which can limit their participation in some programs. And the society also identified the need for childminding for adult programs. Their capacity to offer that childcare is quite limited depending on the program that they're offering. So just overall, through needs assessments, these surveys and conversations, several common themes emerged about how these communities are engaging with nature and what supports their access. Across the board, we saw a really strong interest in nature-based learning. There's an excitement for these kinds of programs to learn about local ecosystems, family-friendly activities, and opportunities for people to connect with others of shared identities. We also learned that equity-deserving communities access information in different ways. So by promoting these events that we were hosting directly to the agencies that work with these communities, we saw really significant interest in registration at these events. And we also understand that these organizations have built a strong level of trust and familiarity with their communities. So by collaborating and partnering with these organizations, municipalities or practitioners can really enhance the impact and engagement that they're having. And as we approach the end of year 3, we wanted to share these learnings with local governments and practitioners who are looking for a starting point to enhance equitable access to green space. So that's where we developed the resource kit for local governments and practitioners to inspire decision makers to adopt equity-informed green space and climate action strategies. This resource kit includes 5 different recommendations with best practices for implementation and really building on the lessons that we learned throughout the project. There's also a breadth of resources that for further exploration on equitable access to nature, including research and related initiatives. And we see this resource as an important legacy piece that we hope will continue to inspire action beyond the conclusion of this project. So just I'll quickly just run through a couple of these. First recommendation focuses on engaging with equity-deserving communities to better understand the barriers that they might face when accessing green spaces. A few best practices to keep in mind just include, even when you're hosting these engagement opportunities, to minimize the burden of participation. So considering different factors like time and cost and location, and also offering contribution or honorariums for those who are sharing their time and lived experience. An example of community engagement that has shaped accessibility is the Capital Regional District's Guide to User-Friendly Trails. This was developed by their Intermunicipal Advisory Committee on Disability Issues, and it began as a trail assessment focused on seniors' recreation needs and evolved into a resource that highlights accessible trails for people of all ages and abilities. Our second recommendation encourages local governments to consider how different communities experience green spaces and to identify, remove, and prevent barriers that may prevent them from accessing or feeling welcome in these spaces. And so by embedding an equity lens into planning tools, such as parkland acquisition or evaluation frameworks, local governments can better ensure that decisions around where parks are located, how they're designed, and where those resources are being allocated can help address those gaps in access. An example of another municipality who has helped to remove barriers is the Blind Square app, which was implemented by the City of Victoria along their part of the Trans-Canada Trail. And so the self-voicing navigation app provides information on safe routes and different park amenities, which help blind or partially sighted residents explore the trail with greater independence and confidence. And it's just really amazing to see how an initiative and technology like this can make green spaces more inclusive and accessible.
Thanks, Ariadne. So recommendation 3 is really about the fact that there's so much to learn from those already working with equity deserving communities. And an excellent example is Power to Be, who you'll learn more about in a few minutes here. And Ariadne had a chance to participate and they have a Go Day. So that's one example. Another success story is the City of Nanaimo. They have group nature strolls and walking tours for newcomers, families, and seniors. So you're really trying to develop programs that are low barrier. Again, we keep having this barrier discussion come up because it's so important, making them welcoming and accessible, and partnering with community agencies that are working with these diverse communities. Another example is the Central Vancouver Island Multicultural Society doing important work with newcomers and immigrants. For example, in 2024, 2025, they served close to 3,000 clients from up to 81 different countries, representing about 5 different major languages. I'm sure there were some other ones as well. So they have several programs that help people get into Greenspace. Recommendation 4 is about supporting things that are going on in the community. We mentioned Swan Lake Nature Sanctuary. They're really working in promoting green space, helping people to understand nature and biodiversity. So those collaborations, as I mentioned, and partnerships have been really vital to this project too. And it really helps to maximize capacity, engagement, and impact. And working with organizations that have nature educators on staff or that we can work with helps to enhance the opportunity for learning. And the winter bird walk at the Swan Lake Nature Sanctuary that we had February of 2025 is an example of that, because we are in partnership with the Gorge Waterway Action Society, Power to Be, and Victoria Immigrant and Refugee Society. So it's looking for places where learning and equitable access are already a priority. And then recommendation 5 is around trying to quantify where green space is, where those equity deserving groups are, and where the connections can be better made. This actually links back to, I would say, the first year of the project with some of that GIS analysis and policy analysis, looking at where are those communities located and what can be improved. And so this is around mapping the location of municipal, regional, and protected green spaces to their proximity to underserved communities. And what has been exciting is that through the Greater Victoria Neighborhood, we became in partnership with the RUSH, the Resilient Urban Systems and Habitat Initiative, and they are actually using some of our data layers in some of their maps. And I will pass it on to Ariadne to give you a bit more detail.
Sure. Just in the interest of time, I won't go into this into detail, but this is just an image of the Rush map itself. And on the right in the legends, you can see where our data that was collected in year 1 is being used to support other data layers, community assets, location of green infrastructure and climate adaptation measures, just to create a shared language around the vulnerabilities and opportunities for long-term community health and resilience and climate action. So I really encourage anyone on this call to take a look at the Rush map. There's a whole breadth of data that's included there. Something in particular, the data is supporting the visualization of whether Victoria is meeting Nature Canada's 3 by 30 by 300 rule regarding tree equity. So it's really cool to see how some of the data that was collected in year 1 is being used to support other initiatives and the visualization of community resilience. So with that, I will hand it over to Robin to talk more about his work at Power to Be and the importance of partnerships.
Thanks, Ariadne and Kelly. Yeah, I think what has become so evident from your share back about your project is that we're trying to meet so many diverse needs, and I think the strength of serving those needs comes in partnership, which is what I'd like to highlight today. Just before I get into it, I am calling from the Lekwungen and Songhees territory, specifically that of the Wisconsin people here in Esquimalt. My name is Robin McGeough. I use he, him pronouns, and I am the head of programs at Power to Be. I feel very privileged that nature is a river that runs through my work and also my hobbies. And I think it's something that, I've felt very passionate about, and especially when it comes to not taking the access we have for granted and using the privileges that we have to work in an equity sense. I think this work is all the more important. I'll go to the next slide. So just to give a little bit of a synopsis of who we are and what we do, Power to Be is an adaptive recreation organization, charity. We work to help lower barriers to people accessing the outdoors. Some of those barriers are cognitive, physical, financial, or social. But we also don't like to look at the deficits alone. We also like to work in a strength-based sense. So everyone can benefit from connecting to nature, and we don't like to confine what the positive benefit can look like. So a lot of our programs are very centered around helping people develop their own connections and seeing what can happen from that. We've been very lucky to, I think, start in working around physical accessibility, but we've expanded out to really meet the needs of a number of communities. And for that reason, we've intersected with the work that Ariadne and Kelly are doing in a number of ways to help get folks outside. I will go to the next slide. So we run programs largely out of Victoria, but we also have an office in Vancouver. We work very closely with other nonprofits. I think it's not so much a boundary, but one of the things that we have to remind ourselves is that we can't be everything to everyone. And I think that goes for a lot of organizations that are working to lower barriers, is that part of it remains being flexible, but part of it means being focused. And I think that's where collaboration really becomes an important tool to help make the most of what we have, expand our reach and impact, but also become champions for positive change in the work that we're doing. We're very lucky to have a beautiful site at Prospect Lake where we run a number of programs, but in the spirit of collaboration and changing it up, we also run a number of programs off-site around Vancouver Island and the Lower Mainland. I will go to the next slide. Just to underline, I think, why we do what we do, and I think why we really feel aligned in the collaborations that we have, is that we believe everybody belongs in nature, and there's such a benefit in helping connect people to the outdoor spaces. And we want to make sure that we're lowering barriers so that people don't have to rest on what they're feeling challenged by or what the system is challenging them by. And they can actually just lean into the magical moments of, yeah, doing something they haven't done before, doing something that they used to do, but now they do a little differently. And yeah, building community through those experiences. So, yeah, again, feel very lucky that this is our job. I'll go to the next slide. We do a number of different programs that we've organized into 3 streams. Inclusive Adventures is kind of our adaptive programs that help people get outside by removing barriers. Some of those barriers were discussed in Kelly and Ariadne's program: transportation, cost, familiarity, and then the right tools. And we work really hard to learn about emerging trends in adaptive recreation so that we can provide an experience that is comfortable, safe, and helps people progress in their challenges. We also work in a wilderness wellness stream, which helps us, focus on the well-being and mental health supports that connecting to nature can offer. So we work very closely with nature-based counseling. We do a lot of forest bathing activities and just try and help, bring people out into nature and let nature be its own facilitator in improving their connection to well-being. And lastly, Catalyst for Good, which is projects that we work on that are really geared towards social change. We keep it open-ended for a reason, because we find there's a lot of emerging trends and needs, both on a community level, provincial and national level, that we like to get involved in. And this helps us inspire our staff to be looking out for opportunities to make good work happen that they, might see as outside their scope, but that when we look at it from an organizational level, really help us make a positive impact in our community. All right, next slide. I was racking my brain for metaphors to think about why partnerships are so valuable to us, and I had to turn to what was happening around us at site. We have a number of nurse logs on our property, which, for those of you who maybe don't know, those are trees that have fallen that provide environments for growth for other organisms. They kind of become their own micro ecosystem. And for me, that's really what partnerships are all about. It's about sharing resources, it's about offering, it's about taking when you need, and that it's something we can all come together to really benefit the whole, while also engaging in the ways that we uniquely are hoping to receive and offer support. It's a chance for connection. The timelines can be short, they can be long, but really it's about sharing. And I think especially when nonprofits are facing any number of challenges financially, socially, and beyond, collaboration becomes such an essential tool for the longevity of our impact. For us in particular, we find partnerships really help us extend our reach and access in nature-based programs. They also help improve program quality by bringing in experts, bringing in folks who are specialists in their field who can add value to our programs. They help us also expand our community belonging. We find, especially working with community groups, the relationships that other organizations have with their clients and participants is so strong, and there can be a lead up to transferring that by referring to a different program. So we like to work closely with folks who do what they do best and help use our resources to help make that happen. We also like to share and take resources when it comes to space. As you saw in our Have a Go program, it's a really helpful way to bring together different community partners who want to spread the word of what they do and engage different equity deserving groups, but might not know where to base themselves in order to do that engagement. So we really like to provide space for community partners to share and engage our community, and it goes both ways, where we've really benefited from reaching out to other intersectional communities to share more about what we can offer. And lastly, I think the biggest thing for us as far as benefits to collaboration come from driving social change. We're really here to have conversations wherever we have a seat at the table when it comes to advocating for inclusion, accessibility, and diversity. And I think particularly in the work that we did with SCBC on our Malahat Skywalk trip, it was really amazing to see people coming together to advocate for their clients in particular, that considering accessible routes, considering transportation, asking questions about the kinds of terrain or what kinds of support would be there when it came to our clients was really helpful. And really amazing to see that engaged. And I know for Verks to be able to ask questions about how are we going to support multilingual clients? How are we going to ensure that there's food that's available that would appeal to different dietary needs? And it's just really helpful to bring people together where, yeah, we can advocate for that. And then a new template for running events of this magnitude is kind of set into motion that we all can refer to and feel a lot more confident that we're taking on these opportunities in a good way. I will go to the next slide. And as I started the conversation, we want to be everything to everyone, and we also have to be thoughtful about managing our time, resources, and our talent. So for us in framing partnerships, which in working with SCBC, all of these were a green light. We like to ask ourselves the question, who are we serving? Is there overlap in the clients that we want to work with? What's the purpose of our experience? Is there a mutual goal as far as what we're doing? where are we going? Is there an interest? Is there an accessibility consideration that we feel good about when we're partnering on something? And lastly, do we have the experience? Is our practice something that aligns? And I think when we ask ourselves these questions, we can help either advocate for certain elements that we want to strengthen in order to make the partnership more well-rounded. Or we can also take a look at who else in our community might do these things better to still make good things happen. And these four P's wrap around our community, which ultimately we are in service to. And I think in what we were able to achieve in the Malahat Skywalk, it was very much rooted on the well-being of all of our clients. And I think that felt, yeah, just a very gratifying experience.
I'm sorry, Robin.
Yeah.
We are at time, so I just want to just make sure that if people need to jump off the call, that's fine.
Sure.
The number of people are starting to dwindle, so you're
Yeah.
welcome to continue, or we can maybe leave 5 minutes for folks to ask questions because we know that the Q&A session is an important part
Yeah,
of this.
definitely.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty much wrapped up. And my question was just, yeah, if people had any questions after that. So
Yeah, Andrew, we've got just a couple of slides left here. So yeah. Thanks, Robin. I think we kind of hogged the time. Sorry. So maybe we'll go to the conclusions slide, and then we can jump into Q&A, Andrew, if that works. So I love the nurse log analogy, Robin. Thank you. And thank you so much for all that insight and just for the great partnership. It's been incredible to work with all of you at Power to Be. So thank you for that. We just want to leave you with the fact that I think we're really encouraged, even though Greenspace for All is ending, that we're hoping there's been relationships formed, connections made, and people have a chance to work with others to continue this important work. And these are just some examples of work in this space that is ongoing. BC Parks Foundation has a Healthy by Nature, Learning by Nature programs. Nature Canada has just recently put out some nature guides for newcomers. Power to Be is doing excellent work. Park People, we've connected with them, and they are going to be releasing a toolkit in kind of a similar realm of things. And so we're referencing that in our resource kit, which we will have a QR code to in a second here. And we'll also be connecting to them when they release their toolkit in the fall. So maybe next slide, I think, is we'll just put up the next slide. So this is basically, stay in touch with Robin and others at Power to Be if you'd like. Stewardship Center is up there, the resource kit there's a QR code, and maybe Ariadne can throw the link into the chat, and then we can open up for Q&A if that's okay, Andrew.
Yeah, we don't have many people on the call anymore. But yes, if there are questions, please go ahead. Yes, Graham, go for it.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew, and thanks everyone for the presentation. My question is actually similar to what Elsie put in the chat around sort of the parts of the program that create maybe the most durable change, but specifically I was wondering if you had been able to connect with any of the municipalities that you have been collaborating with, and if they have been interested in trying to implement any of your strategies in the toolkit into their planning process. I hope and I'm sure that they are thinking about these things, but be curious to know if they've been receptive to working with you guys.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's an excellent question. I would say that RDN, Regional District of Nanaimo, has been somewhat the most proactive. They actually ran an earlier draft of our resource kit by their accessibility committee. I would say that they attended the most of our PAC meetings. CVRD, it seems to be most early days for them, but as you mentioned, I think everyone's kind of thinking about it and aware of it, trying to have it in their policy and strategic documents. But we are hoping to see, I think, a little bit more into the implementation realm. And then CRD as an entity, I would say maybe not so much, but municipalities within CRD, for example, Esquimalt, very much were on board and supportive. And for example, a planting party that we did at the Esquimalt Gorge restoration project, they were very supportive and a great partner on. So really variable, I think, is the answer there.
Thanks, that makes sense.
And sorry, we can't see the chat, Andrew. Are there questions in the chat or somewhere else that maybe we're not seeing?
No, it's just so Elsie is asking, I think that was repeated already, but she's interested in seeing parts of the program that create the most durable change and broad access to green space. Is it more green spaces or just better transportation networks to get to them, or what is it? What's the most durable change?
We're hoping the resource kit is one of the most durable legacy pieces, along with the partnerships that we hope people have amongst themselves, even though we're not going to be on the scene anymore. Those are the pieces that, and even the resource kit will very much evolve. I mean, there's a number of resources in it that, as the emerging science changes, will become hopefully updates, and maybe SCBC can update those in the future. And yes, I think I think it's always about the people. It's the people being on board, recognizing the importance of it. As Robin mentioned, those relationships are really vital, and raising awareness hopefully will all help it to endure. But Robin and Ariadne, anything you guys would like to add?
I don't think so. Yeah.
Andrew, anything from your point of view?
No, but I see Jenny, your camera's on. Did you want to add something?
I really just wanted to say thank you, because it's very impressive to see all the things that happened during the last years. I know it was a lot of work, and it's impressive what you might take every single product into something that is very useful. And I look forward to seeing where things are going in the next couple of years or more. And very happy to see that they're implementing some of the maps that we created. That's really, really, I mean, that's what we wanted them to do. So yeah, thanks for all the work you did. It was amazing to work together.
Thank you, Jenny.
Thank
I
you,
mean,
Jenny.
your work was like baseline, a really important baseline, and we have shared those maps with a number, well, I would say with all 3 regional districts, so they all have access to it. They're aware of that type of analysis, and this most recent Rush initiative that's just kind of transpired in the last few. Well, actually, they asked for the data, I would say a few months ago, but the tree equity piece around using the Greenspace for All data is quite new and super exciting to see it, as you said, being woven into other initiatives for sure. And great to see you too.
Good to see you.
All right. Well, thank you all again for presenting. Well, as everyone can see, you're all very passionate about this topic, and so am I, of course. So for those of you still on the call, you can see their contact info here. So if you want to reach out for more questions, you can reach out to me or reach out directly to these folks here. Well, thanks again to the presenters as well as the audience who came to hear about our project.
Thanks,
Thank you
Andrew.
so much, Andrew.
And
Thank you,
Robin. Thank you.
Robin.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Good to see you. Bye.
And take care.
Likewise.